Okay, guten Vach. A guten Zuma is Heshi says that everyone should be we should be Zoichet this Magula saying the Richter Geula free us from this thousand galus. Now we spoke a Magdish Nechasa, a person's Magdish is property, he's Magdish all his property, and among the property he has things that are away from his bear, for example, wine and oil, and which could be from the Sachim, and Ophos, which could be for Karbanis. Rabbi Eliezer says you sell everything for its min, and you take that money and buy oilos, right? And everything else goes to, in other words, anything that's royal in Mizbeach ends up being a carbon oila. Anything that's royal in Mizbeach ends up being a carbon oila. Okay, that's what the Mishnah said. Gevach Shimon Dov Tzvi. Shimon, we're starting on Yud Gimel, Yud Beis on the Beis, Yud Beis on the Beis, a few lines from the bottom, Rebbe Vo. So we're going to do two blocks tonight. Yud Gimel and Yud Dalet. I knew you said Gevaldik. Okay, so here we go. So Rebbe Eliezer Yimachu Aramin. Rebbe Eliezer said that what are you doing? You're going to sell it, and any min that's right, you're going to end up going ahead and using it you're going to sell it for being an oila. So now, why is that? So Rav Shimon ben Lakish, time of Rebbe Eliezer. What's Rebbe Eliezer's reasoning that all the things that are royal mizbeach end up being sold for an oila? It says Dabe al Aaron vel banav asher yakrivu laHashem la'oila, and anything that can be brought laHashem is la'oila. Hakol karev oila. Everything is an oila. So therefore, you magnish your property, you sell it, even things that are royal mizbeach, and they go la'oila, and anything that's not royal mizbeach goes to better kabayas. But anything royal mizbeach, whether it's oil, whether it's flour, whether it's wine, right, whether it's oifos, you sell them. And again, we're going to shtel on why the oifos you don't bring directly as a carbon oila. If a guy needs an oilus oif, guys, if a guy needs an oilus oif, why can't you bring that? So the Tzayim it says, Tamim zacha yachla filu oifos. I might think that you could either sell the oifos, sell the oil and wine, and buy an oif, or bring the oif directly. Tamalayim of a buck of labor oifos. So let's get this straight, guys. He's magdish all his property. He has among his property birds. These birds cannot be brought as an oila. These birds cannot be brought as an oila because we have a miyat, but buck of labor oifos. Now, going back the other day, Reb Shimon said, if I have an akeva, an animal that's an akeva, I say this animal should be an oila, the halacha is that it's an oila. I mean, you sell it and you bring with the money an oila. Why? Why is that? Because we find in the genre of oila, we find the keva. Where is that? By oila sa'oif. So you see that oila sa'oif is kavua din of oila. So question, why over here do we say in oila sa'oif you have to sell it and bring oila? But over there we say the oila itself, since it's roi, the oif, it's roi in the nekeva of being an oila, it allows us to go ahead and make a nekeva of an animal into an oila. If the nekeva of an animal is roi to be an oila because of the oif, so an oif itself directly should be an oila. Again, if the nekeva of an animal we're going to sell for an oila because we find in the realm of oila, we find the oila sa'if. If a person's magnish is nechasim and he has a bird itself, that bird itself should be bought as an oila. That's the Gemara's kasha. Rabbi Yirmiyah Baraboin Barchia have a yasiv when they were sitting. V'amran Taman, and we said over there, Rabbi Yochanan, time with Reb Shimon. The reason Reb Shimon says that an animal that is in a keva is bought as an oila, shekain nekeva sheba oif keshera lava oila. V'koya Amar, and here he says hachin. He says what he says over here that you have to go ahead and sell it. Why can't you bring it? So in other words, why do you sell it? Why can't it be an oila? So Rabbi Yaisi kamaisa kaha. I'll answer Rabbi Elias like this. Dam Reb Shmuel b'shem Reb Zira. Kol she'ena yichol likarev, anything that itself that can't be bought as a carbon, lo chi v'lo dameha, lo kitcha ela hegdish damin. Okay, in other words, over here, when the person's magdish the animals, is magdish this, he doesn't have in mind that it should be a carbon. He doesn't have that in mind. So since I can't do one or two things, what can I do? Fiat amid yoyis, very good. Yoyis in Rishonim means very good. Shapir. What we say in Bavli Shapir, the Yerushalmi says yois. Lehakrivoy, to be makriv the card the oif directly. Einat yachol the chsiv babaka v'loy oifos. It says when you're magdashol your property, it becomes what? Babak of le'oifis. In other words, oifis, you can't go ahead and bring us an oila through this mechanism. So I can't be makar of it. Now, what about being paid it? And being, if it's kaidish being paid it, liftaisa paid it, ain't atiyachal, she'ain life pidyon. There's no pidyon to a knife. So there's the rule of thumb, guys. Watch. If I'm magdish something and I can't do either one or two things, I can't bring it as a carbon with kedushas aguf. I can't bring it as a be paid it with kedushas damim. So obviously, I didn't mean it to be anything but. I'm being magdish lebedik abayis. So I don't mean that kedushas damim mamish means kedushas guf. So therefore, that's why over here, even though you magdish the property, you can't use this oif. You can't go ahead and turn this oif into an oila because of what? Because of this rule of Shmuel. Anything that you magdish, right, that you can't go bring directly, and over here you can't bring it directly because it says bakar, and I can't be pointed because no pidyon oif. So right, so he only is magdish l'kedushas damim. Chavrayu b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Avayu bar Nagri Amar Kumi Rabbi. Okay, now this is going back. Biggest promise in Yerushalmi is finding where it's going back to. We said the other day, like Rav Shimon ben Yehudin, Rav Shimon, if a person's magdish in a keva for an oila, for a asham, for a pesach, none of that works. None of that works, right? That's what we said. What's the reason none of it works? We're trying to find the reason. Why Rav Shimon ben Yehuda, if a magdish an animal in the keva, why doesn't it work for an oila? Why doesn't it work for an asham? Why doesn't it work for pesachim, which are all bought for males? Okay, so he says, I'll tell you the reason. Haima dehain detanya. V'im kol behema tmeya asher la yakrivu mimenu karban laHashem. The pasuk says in Vayikra Chav Zayin, and any animal tmeya. Now tmeya could mean a pig, but it doesn't because it says pig in another pasuk. So tmeya, he means it's tmeya, and we're going to see what it means tmeya in a second. Right? V'im kol behema tmeya asher la yakrivu mimenu karban laHashem. Ma tamalem tmeya elafil tmeya ba'oisei Hashem. Even if it's tamei in that name, right? What does that mean? A nekeva for an oila, a nekeva for nasham, a nekeva for a pesach. Vis-a-vis these karbonis, we call it temeya. It has no shaykhs to it. They have to be males. They can't be females. So temeya here doesn't mean mamish temeya, a mule, a chazer. It means temeya for its genre. That oila is only a zachar, a asham is only a zachar, a pesach is only a zachar. So anything that's temeya for that can't be brought. That's the opinion. The kasha, because what does it say at the end of the pasuk, guys? So what do? You stand it up and you paid it. The Kohen goes evaluates it and you paid it. If you're telling me that it's not in the genre of being brought as a carbon, so there's no kedusha. If there's no kedusha, how can it say v'hem v'herech? How could you touch up the ratio of the pasuk temeya, meaning in a keva in a male world? And you're telling me, therefore, it's not kodesh because it's temeya and it says lo you can't bring it as a carbon. So what's v'hem v'herech? Why are you going ahead and shatzing up, evaluating how much it's worth for pediyah? Pediyah is when there's kedusha. Mashma over here that there's no kedusha. So you have so Ella that we're going to reject that pshat. Reb Zira b'shem Relezer lo yamakain. He says rather like Reb Shimon that the keva could be brought as an oila, that a keva can make a tamura, right? Ella v'im kol behemet tmeya shalei yakrivu mimenu carbon lashem kol shein roy lekarev. Anything that can't be brought as a carbon, like kan v'lei b'makam acher, not here and not a place. Ain't oisa tamura, doesn't make a tamura. Yatzin the keva la'oila. If a person sets aside the keva la'oila, afa pishein roy lekarev kan. Even though you can't bring it as an oila, roy lekarev b'makam acher, you can bring it as a shlamim. You can bring it as a chatas. So therefore, you can make a tamura. Rav Ovin, V'Roiv Boin, and Rav Boin Kumei Rav Zera, the for Rav Zera, Hari Rav Nirva, an animal that did an Avera or an Nirva or an Avera was done to it, Shein Mui Lakar. If you can't bring this as a carbon, like Kamvaleva Makamacher, Variheno is a Tamura, but it could make a Tamura, and Taisefta says a Tamura would work. So Lachera what about your rule? Amaloin, Afanile Amati Ela Tmeya Mamish. I only meant the Keva. And the keva mamish, because in the keva can never be bought as an oila. The kosher badok siv v'hemed beherech. Perish. The difference between a roiveya v'nirva and a keva innately is not in the parsha of being an oila. You can't bring it. A nirva is in the parsha. It's a male animal or female animal, whatever it is. And the reason you can't bring it as a carbon is a side issue. not innately in the carbon itself. There's something was done to the animal. On the keva, I know it doesn't work in this generation. There's no such thing as a trans behema. A behema is what it is. What it is. There's you can identify. You're a male or you're a female. It's like you does. That's it, right? So therefore, in that scenario, it's out of the ballpark. Mashain came by Rabbi Nevirva, since it's in the ballpark, except that something was done to it. And they asked the question: how could you say that pasuk speaking about the animal that has no kedusha? I says v'hemed v'herech. So the same kasha on a different Indian. Okay, we finished with Tamura for a while, right? Until next time. Okay, says the Mishnah. Let me give it to you outside. Every 30 days they would evaluate and set a price. They would go ahead, then they would contract out. They'd say, listen, you can provide a soles, you can provide yayin for the base of Mikdash at X amount. Let's call it 4 for Sela. It goes up in price, 3 for Sela. That extra 1 goes to Hegdish. If you go ahead and sell it, it goes down in price, meaning it's you contract out for 3 and now you can get 4. Hegdish gets the extra 1, right? Hegdish gets the extra 1. Achas Lam Yoim Misharin Salishka, they would go ahead and be Mishar. Kolam Akabal Love Lasapik Sluslis, anyone who was contracted out to accept a flour, may arba four sar for sela. The mishalosh, if it goes up in price, and then you can get 3. Yaspik midala, you have to go ahead and provide 4. Mashlish, you contract that at 3. The midala now went down in price, and you can get 4. Yaspik midala, you have to buy 4. She had hegdish ala yona. Hegdish always gets the upper hand. Imisliya silas. If you after the sale, the flour became wormy. It goes to the contractor. He takes the loss. If the yayin goes vinegary, the contractor takes the loss. You only receive it until the mizbeach accepts it. When do you get your money? Only after it's been accepted. In other words, no matter you contract it out and X amount of money, you're not going to get paid until it's actually brought, because until it's brought, the possibility exists that it may spoil. So to ensure that whatever happens to it, that the Hegdish doesn't take a loss, you only officially get the money when it's used. We saw this earlier in the Masechta. Tana b'shem Shimon miyad hayim mekablas masein, they get the money right away. But kahanim misrisim heim, and they make sure that the oil and the vinegar and the wine and the flour does not get wormy or spoiled. Okay, and then they have 2 blot of agadata. Just the Mishnah here is the same Mishnah and Yuma. It's describing people who had certain jobs. These people, either there's a machlokus in the Gemara. These were the outstanding people throughout all generations. They didn't live at the same time, and they're just they're given the Hall of Fame of people who did the jobs over here, or in fact they all lived at the same time. The Tana who wrote it was describing the people in his time. That's machlokus in the Gemara. Let's meet these people. Says the Mishnah. Elohein Amamunim, these are the people who were in charge. Shahayav and Migdash. Yochanan and Pinchas ala Chasamos. Yochanan and Pinchas was in charge of the petek. We're going to see the Chasamas. You would go ahead and get a petek that said, we'll get into this tomorrow. It said either Zachar, Gedi, or Egel, or Chayta, and you will go ahead. You would give this, and they would give you X amount of oil and X amount of flour. Achia al Nesachim. So he would get the petek. The guy with the petek would go into Achia, and Achia would provide. You pay for the petek, you pay for that, and right, and the nesachim, you would get what as a result when you give the petek to the nesachim, and you get it. You didn't give cash to the guy who's in charge of libations. Masir ben Shmuel ala Paisus. He was every day. There was 4 Paisus in the base of Migdash. They would have lotteries who do the jobs. The first one being the Trumas Hadesha, and the second one describing about the Korban Tamid, the Shechted, and bringing it up. And who was in charge of that was the person Masir ben Shmuel. Pesachia ala Kinim. He was in charge of the birds. The woman Yaledes and Zavas were birds. He was in charge of that, which seems to be a very hard job. And Pesachia is own Mordechai. In fact, that's the fame of Mordechai of Megillus Esther fame. Pesachia, why is it called Pesachia? He was able to go ahead and open up words. He was, as we're going to see in the Gemara, he was able to understand Ramazim and different things. So it was called Pesachia. He opened up literally understanding of people. Then the Kahanim got sick because they walked barefoot and they ate a lot of meat. So he was in charge of Chalam Yayin. He knew the right ingredients to mix to make people better. Nechunya Chayfa Sichin. Nechunya was an expert digger and in terms of finding water. Givini Kruz Gavini he was the Veka. Ben Gever al Nila Sharim. Ben Gever was in charge of security. He would have to close the gates. Ben Babi Mamuna al Apkia. He was in charge of the wicks. He would go ahead and adjust the wicks thickness and thinness to describe which, in terms of oil, which would accept oil or make it burn longer or shorter. Ben Arz, because they had the same amount of oil, same amount of oil all the time. Ben Arza alat Silsel, he was in charge of the cymbals, of the instruments. Hugris ben Levi al Asher, he was in charge of singing. Beis Garmu al Maisa lechem uponim, the house of Garmu, they were the experts in making lechem uponim, which was very difficult. Beis Avtinis al Maisa Ketoris, he was in charge of Maisa Ketoris. Be'elazar al Proichis, Elazar was in charge of the Proichis and the going ahead and weaving it. And Pinchas Hamalbish, and Pinchas was in charge of tailoring. Rav Chizkiah Amar Sima, I'm going to go very fast. Rabbanan Chadam Kashiri Davidar, they were speaking at the Ksharim of each and every generation. Balim Lois Aleim, these were the Hall of Fame. The Charna Amar, another one says, Misha Hayya Boisidar, Mana Masha Badar. Anyone who was in this generation, the person recounted what was in this generation, but they didn't live at the same time. The Amar Kashiri called Davidar, Balim, Lois Al Kulam. Al Kulam Oimer, and all these, it says, okay, let's skip a few lines. So Amar Rav Yaina, Ksiv, Lachena Chalik Le Barabim Es Atsumim. Okay, I think we're going to go to the Amid Beis, right? We go to the Amid Beis. Rabbi says that Lachena Chalik Le Barabim Es Atsumim Yichalik Shalom, and therefore I will divide the Rabbim, the strong ones. I'll divide the spoils. Rabbi Akiva, Shehiski Midrash Halachas V'Agadas. Rabbi Akiva, he's the one who gets schar for himself in future generations, because he was the one who was Sada, Midrashim Halachas V'Agadas. The Gemara says that, again, all halacha comes from Rabbi Akiva, guys, because Rabbi Akiva's Talmud was Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Meir's Talmud was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. These are the latter Tanoim, and he was Masad of all the Mishnayos. And Rebbe was Masad Mishnayos based upon the deduction of Rabbi Akiva. Tiknu. Elamat Tiknu, what did Rabbi Akiva Matakin said? Kol Pratas. In Torah, he was Matakin the Kol and Pratam. Amravo, Ksiv, it says Mishpachas Sleifrim, Yoshve Yavitz. What's Sleifrim? What's the Lashon Sleifrim? Matam Alem Sleifrim. Elishasu was a Torah Suras Sapuras. They made mnemonics in the Torah by making numbers to be able to remember things. For example, Chamisha Lo Yitzcham, which was 5 people should not be Torah. Hey, Devarim Chayov Mechala. 5 things to Chayim Mechala. Chamesh Yashin Nashim Peturas Sarasayim. 15 women pated at Saras Lin Yavamis. Shleishim Sheis creases b'Torah. 36 b'Torah. Shalosh Yasi Dov and Nemru b'Nevelas Life. 13 says regarding Nevelas Life Tar. Dalad Avos Nesikin. Avos Malachas Avim Chasachas. You got the drift. Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Ksiv. It says LeEzra Kayin has Sleifer, and then it says Sleifer Divrei Mitzvah Hashem. So listen to the words again. LeEzra has Sleifer. Hakayin has Sleifer, and then it says Sleifer. Second time it says the word Sleifer. The Hashem. What time let me Sleifer second time? El Kashem Shal Sleifer. Divrei Torah Kachi Sleifer b'Divrei Chachanim. The early generations, they plowed Bazar, they planted, they weeded, they trimmed, they Kitsu, Amru, Dashu, Zaru, Baru, Teichnu, Harko, Glashu, Kitfu, they rolled out for Afu, in other words, they baked the bread, they set it all up for us. For Anu and Lanu, we're just lazy. Malecho, we don't have what to eat. Zimna says, Hashem of Zira, Ein having Kadmim Malachim, the previous generations were Malachim, and Ben Anashim, then were people. The Havi Ben Anashim, they were people, Anochem, we're donkeys. Rav Monam, Ahi Shaita, Amrin, I feel Chamrasei, Rav Yochanan ben Pinchas ben Yor, Layed Mamu, Chamrasei. Okay, I think this is Gemara, I know it's a Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Yud Beis, right? We're not even like, Imishrayim Kemalachim, Anuk Ben Adam, Hem Ben Adam, Anuk Chamarim, Veloy Chamarim Shel Pinchas ben Yoya. So the Gemara is going to tell us why was the good galus of Pinchas ben Yoya. The Chamrasei ben Pinchas Yoya, Gun V'Solistim B'Laila, of the timber. They stole it and they hid him at night. Gov until Siyumi, they hid him for 3 days. For like Tom Klum, he didn't eat anything. They refused to eat the animal. Until Siyumi, after 3 days, and they returned the donkey. They said, let's get it out from our hiding place. Like Thomas, can you imagine having a dead donkey there? It doesn't smell so geschmack. So Gabon. So Afguna Azla Kamalei Atari Demara. It went out and went home to its master, Pinchas ben Yoel. Shayis Manakas, it was braying and Amalahoim, Piskon Lahada, Alvusa. Pinchas said, open the door for this Nebuch donkey. This like till Siyomid like time at Klum. He didn't eat for 3 days. He knew he didn't eat. Plus, they opened the door, he went in. Amalahoim, Yovle Klum Techel, feed him. Yov kuma shari v'lo yabas meichel. They put in front of him soyim and he refused to eat it. Amalei Rebbe loy bois lemeichel. Amaloin misaknin in it. Did you go ahead and clean out all the dirt? Amalei, yeah, we did. So Amaloin varmisim demai. They just separate the mai. Amalei loy. Kenaf alpha Rebbe. You taught us Rebbe. Halakech zera lebehema. Kemach lo'oyroi shemen lo'or patim and adamai. So we don't have to shade off the mai for this animal. Amaloi. So Pinchas ben said, "My never la lahad la lu." So what can I do for this nebuch donkey? The machamra al gamra sogin is machmar himself. Varimas dom yamav. They went ahead. They separated the mai v'achlis and the donkey ate. Can you imagine? Chumrit the donkey. Psach alakinim. Fascinating. This gemara appears in Menachos as well. Samach Dalet. Psach alakinim. Borei ma gadol hu koicha shaloisa ish. Poiches devarim v'darshim. What does it mean? Poiches devarim v'darshim. Listen what he did. Yodei be'ayin lashon. Tani sanetron yesh b'shnayim sheyicholim daber. They have what two people who can speak all languages. V'kulan royin l'shmoya, but they can understand. Harizeh ruyin l'sanhedrin. That's a sanhedrin. Gimel harizeh beinanis. 3 people. It's a beinanis. Dalet harizu chachma. Will be Yavna Dalet. The people, 4 people who spoke all 70 languages. Ben Azai, Ben Zleima, Ben Chachinai, Loza Ben Masya. Amr of Chisda, Pamachas Yovsha, Eretz Yisrael, V'Layodu Mehechon Levi Omer. They didn't know where to bring the Omer from. V'Chayot Taman Chad Ilim. There was a deaf dumb person. Havayov Chad Yodi al Gagais. He went ahead and he put one hand on the roof. Chad Yodi al Tzrif and one hand on a hut. I seen him come the Pesach. They put in front of Mordechai. Amalahu is Asra the Mesachas Ganas Tzrifim. He said, "Is the place called Ganas Tzrifim by Tzrifim Ganos?" Aslinu Tamon. They went there, Ashken. They found the Omer. So you see that means Pacheas Devarim, guys. He was able to understand the Muslim of people, not only language. He was able. That's Pacheas Devarim. Amrav Yosi Bei Rabbun Pamachas Nishtav Kolal Kula. There was a flood in the whole world. In the Gemara in Menachos that I looked up, it says the Shtei Lechem. There was one Elim, the Haviyah, the Yodei al Eina, he put one hand on his eyes, the Yodei al Suchra, and one rod he put on a bolt of a door. I seen the Gabi Pesachia Omalahoin. Is Asr the Misyakra Ayin Seicher, is a place called Ayin Seicher, or Seicher Ayin, was Tamam Meshkech, when they found the Omer, or the Shtei Lechem. Gimel Lashem Havi Kineim Achas. There were 3 women, and one said, Le'inasi, I'm bringing these Zavim, I'm bringing these birds, Le'inasi. V'achas imeris liyamasi, v'achas imeris liyvasi. Now, Zusha imeris liynasi. The one that said I'm bringing for liyasin sovin meima shoifas kema'ayin. She's bleeding like a fountain. In other words, she's a zava. She didn't stop bleeding. She was bleeding the 11-day periods. So I'm bringing like nasi. She thought I'm bringing it as a zava, right? Amaloin. He said, but Inas Sachna. He said what? But Aina Sachna. She was what? She was endangered by what? By a well. And she wants, now my nafkamina, guys, listen to this. It's a Lomnish nafkamina. Guys, look at me. A zava brings 2 birds. One's an oila and one's a chatas. If you're bringing it as a neder, then you don't bring a chatas as a neder. They're both what? They're both oilas. So it's a nafkamina, a tremendous nafkamina between the 2. You understand? So that he paskin is said, you're saying, my Yonas, that she's a zava. Listen to this nafkamina halacha. She's not bringing a chata. She wants to bring a carbon toilet. She wants to thank Hashem. She wants to bring a neder. So Sovin Meima Shefas Kiyam. She's flowing like a yam, meaning she's a zava that has to bring an oil and a chatas. Amaloin b'yamamas the chata. No, she was mesukin in a what? In a sea, and she's bringing 2 oilas. Zushemat l'zivasi Sovin Meima Zava Mamish. Amaloin no Zeiv Bolit Les Bena. A Zeiv, a wolf, came to take a son and was saved. And in other words, there's another example of what? Of Pacheas B'Dvarim, understanding Ramazan and understanding things. Ben Achia was the head of what? He was in charge of what? Of the Cholim Me'ayin. Right? So Al Yidei Shahaya HaKahanim Mahalchin. No, I don't think that he was in charge of that. Ben Achia, yeah. So he was in charge of that. Al Yidei Shahaya HaKahanim Mahalchin Yichvaim. They'd go barefoot al Ritzpah. It was very cold. He knew which wine was good for the stomach. Which one was bad? Hastus, he could taste it and understand the discerning difference between which is going to be good and which is going to be bad. Because if it was pashit, which is good and bad, anyone can do it, right? Okay. He dug these ditches and caves, which was cold, Maya, which was which was cool. V'hayden kaif ispe shavisa, which rocks had heat. V'had heichen shabravisa mate, and how deep the heat would go. He was an expert geologist. Amr Eliezer, who makes B'nai B'tzoma, nonetheless, his son died his son died of thirst. So Amr Rabbi Chanina, Manda Amr Rachmona Vatran. Anyone who says that Kadosh Baruch Hu is a Vatran, he lets things go, Yivasrim B'nei Ma'amoya, his kishkes will be Vatran, meaning he'll have terrible shulshul problems. Elamarach Rucha, Kadosh Baruch Hu he delays his anger. The Gabi Didei, and then he collects what's his. He takes punishment. This person was punished for even the tzaddik doing all these things. Nonetheless, he must have done something wrong that his son died with sama. How do we know this? It says Svivav Nishara Ma'oid, and surrounding are very, very turbulent. Now Nishara is Sa'ara, like Midagdik Imam Kechut HaSa'ara. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Midagdik with Tzaddikim Kechut HaSa'ara, like a hair's breadth. So he's medagdus with this person like a hair's breadth. Rabbi Yossi, let me tamzeh. Here's the pasuk. Elamin Haman, the Ksiv, Noiruhu al Kol Svivav. His awesomeness is on all surround him. Moira al Akroivim, Yosim and Arachaikim. Right. Rav Chagi b'Shem Shmuel by Nachman, Ma'aser b'Chased Echad, Sheichayfa Bar Sichnim Oris Loivim b'Shavim. You go ahead and dig things for the people going back and forth, for going oil regel. Hamachas Chayse Pito Everest, his daughter was going to get married. The Shut Fanor and the river went ahead and it overflowed. And it drew her away. Each person came to go ahead to this tzaddik and ba'ovin boyin menachte. He wanted to go ahead to go ahead and comfort them. Like kibul olu misnachma. He wasn't makabel, right? Oh, Rab Pinchas ben Yair, he came legabe boy menachme say like kibul olu misnachma. He wasn't makabel misnachma. So I'm alone. Dehu chasidcha. So Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair said, "This is the chassid." I'm like Rabbi Kach v'Kachoy. This guy's a tremendous chassid. And this is what happens to him. That his daughter, in what he's doing, providing water, the daughter should go ahead and be destroyed in water. I'm Efsha shoy mechabed is boyer b'mayim. Said Rabbi Pinchas is possibly is mechabed the creator of water. Fu mekapeach b'mayim. Miyad nafla avor be'ir. A big shmua heard in the city. Boss pita shalai seish. The daughter showed up. Istam the others say the suchsa isaris. A branch appeared as she was being swept away. A branch, she held onto the branch. V'istami malach yored kid Musa Pinchas ben Yored v'etzila. A malach came down and the Musa Pinchas ben Yored is matzala. Nice tikkun chadatin over here says that like Yaakov Avinu was not believing misnachim by Yosef because Yosef was still alive. So when a person's alive, you can't get nechama. So since this girl was still alive, that's why the person wasn't able to go ahead and accept nechama. Gavini was in charge of shouting. Shayimachus based on Migdash Mahay Oima. Why would we say Amdukan Lavaydasam, Lavoida Levium Leduchlanum, Yisrael Maimodam, Akibus Amelch Shama Koili at Ches Parsois, Vinasanai, Manas Harbe. He was so impressed with his voice, he gave him a lot of matanis. Ben Geva Al Nilas Shorim, a person named Ben Geva was in charge of closing the gates. Tigim Rav Kumi, the base Reb Shila, Kora Gavra. When it says Kora Gevra, that by on Yom Kippur it says that they Kora Geva. What does Kora Geva mean? So Achris Kruza. That it means that what? It means the cruz. It means that it means the person. Maybe it means when the rooster calls. Vatinu Ben Gever. Istachal name of Bar Tangula. So Ben Gever obviously means that what? That he was Ben Gever was his name because of he's waking people, not a chicken. Ben Bavi al Apakia, he was in charge of the wicks, the thickness of the wicks. Shahaya Mazik, he would just psilas the wicks that what burn longer or shorter. Rabbi Yossi oil of Kufra. Rabbi Yossi came to the city of Kufra. Bomi Manulaya Parnasam. He wanted to go ahead and point a Parnasam over the city. Like Kiblamine, they didn't want the job. Oil Vomit came on. He got up, Rabbi Yossi, and said in front of them, Ben Babi al Apakia. The Mishnah says, Ben Babi al Apakia. Uma imzeh shenisman al psilas. All he does is he was in charge of making the thickness of the wicks. So he was counted with all these wonderful people in the Mishnah. Atem shatim nisman al chayin afshais like kolshakain. You are nismana all these people that that you can take care of them much more than the wicks. Alachas kam v'kamash. You should take the job. Ben Arzal at Silsel, he was in charge of the instruments. Kihad Tanina Tamon. Okay, now when you did the Nesachim, guys, of the Korban Tamid, that's when the Duchen and the bandstand went to play. So there was a person who stood there when they geased, and he would wave something, and then the bandstand would start playing. So Kihad Tanina Tamon. Hinif Hasagin, the Sagin of the Kohen Gadol, he would go ahead and wave the Sudar if the Kohen Gadol did the Avodah. The Hikish Ben Arzal at Silsel, and that's when he would hit the cymbal and they begin singing. Hugas ben Levi al Asher, Amar Avacha, and the Ima Yisera HaYerdea. He knew how to sing wonderfully. Amar Lov al Hugas ben Levi Shahi Menayim es Koiloi Zemer. He was able to beautify his voice with Zemer. When he put his thumb in his mouth, he was able to make sounds that were like instruments. They would jump back at the same time with the power of his voice. They know how to go ahead and make it and take it out. It seems that taking down was a very, very difficult thing to remove it from the mold. Again, you had to remove it from the mold and it shouldn't break apart. That seemed to be a very difficult thing. For Etzel they didn't want to teach others how to do it based on They sent, this again appears somewhere, they sent to Alexandria, probably in Shabbos, and to do Lechem Panim Ridasa L'Haya B'Kiyan. And they weren't experts in taking it out. And they would light the mold inside the oven, and they would take it down outside the oven. And it wouldn't go ahead and fall apart and crumbly. They did everything inside, and would crumble. All Hashem's working is maneo. So therefore, now these Ben Gomer, they didn't want to teach others. The Gemara in Mishnah in Yuma says that they were said leganai. They spoke about detrimentally, these people. And they wanted more money. So they had 12 and they wanted 24. They had 24. They wanted 48. Why do you want to go ahead and teach people how to go ahead and do this? So we have Mesaira, we have Asenu. This bias is going to be destroyed because you didn't teach others. And they're going to use it for the Vizara. So in other words, they were Chav L'Shem Shemayim. Now, nonetheless, they would still mention Laganai. However, we're going to say something positive about them in this thing that we said, they mentioned L'Shvach. What do we say about them? They never had any. Again, lechem aponim was made from white flour. None of their family ever ate white flour. They all ate whole wheat. So people should not be choshid that they're using the flour. Again, this is an example of another example. Vayisin the me Hashem ume'anoshim. Right? That remember that we spoke about going into the chamber. You couldn't talk. Couldn't have a hem. You couldn't have shoes. You had to talk the whole time, so on and so forth. Right? Basically, Tinas ha'maisa k'toris. But Tinas they've been charged with k'toris. So basically, Tinas ha'ya b'kiyim. And there was something called Mailas Ha'Oshan. We want to teach people about this Mailas Ha'Oshan, this special ingredient. They hired people from Alexandria. They can copy the Ketores. However, they weren't experts in Mailas Ha'Oshan. The smoke would go up, like a stick. It would spread out and come down. Think about like a mushroom cloud, like a atomic bomb. This, when they would go up, it would dissipate right away. He brings another pasuk. Call nikra b'shmi l'chvoidi barasiv. There's another girsa. Shalcha achreim v'leivasu lava. They didn't want to come at shekaflim skar again. They had to double up. Your base many had noitlam daslam chavtad. Rabbi Yehuda im chavtad had noitlam daslam ches. Amul lehem if they ain't tam weitzel l'lamei. Amul lehem asuri v'yadim the same taina. Now asinu shebais is us the charav shlayum l'achreim v'yois kol l'fnei v'dezar shalahem. The varma lolu maskim masel shvach. The next thing shlayotza isha mishalechem mehem mivusemes miralam. Not one of their women ever wore perfume. None of them. If they'd marry another woman, they would make a tanai. They shouldn't wear perfume. They got they're spiced up from the people again, the East and the Kim Hashem Misrael. I'm going to say, Pamachas Yisi, I'm Mishlayim, what's us, Yitina, Kachem, Mishal, Beis Artinas. Amati Loi Beni, Me Ezesh Mishpachat, Amalim Mishpachas Pointing. Amati Loi Beni, of a Sechel, if nation is Skavim, Rabbis, Kavoidon, they want to Misav, they're covered that you have to depend upon them. Ulamai covered Shemayim, we're going again in sharing the Smaila Oshim with other people. Lafika Kavoidon, the Smaila, Kavoid Shemayim, this Rabbi. This Rabbi is this Lashon Sagina, meaning both them and HaKadosh Baruch Hu have, it's like, we don't want to say the cover of Hashem is down, so we're saying a Lashon Sagina. but as a result, both are gone. Amr Rabbi Kiva, Sachli Shimon ben Luga or Shmuel ben Luga, Malakir Yisi Asavim Mani, I was Malakir Asavim, Tina Kechem Mishal Beis Avtinas for Yisi Asay, Shebacha for Yisi Asay, Shesach. I saw him crying, I saw him laughing. Amat Lebini, Lama Bachi, so why are you crying? Amali, I'll cover Shal Beis Abba Shen Ismayet, Lama Shachak, so why are you laughing? Amali, I'll cover Hamatukin with Tzaddik and Lasa. The covenant that's right is waiting for Tzaddik and Lasa Lavai. Umar Royas, what do you see? What do I see? Maila Oshan, Lenegdi. I see Maila Oshan opposite me. So, Numesi Loi Bini Hareoli, right? I said to him, show me the Maila Oshan. So Amali Rebbe, Mesora Biyadi Me'avoisai, Shlela Haroisa Lebriya. I have a Mesora, I'm not able to show it to anybody. Ramri Yachim and Nuri. Pagabi Zakin Echad, Mishal Beis Avtinas. I met a Zakin from the house of Avtinas, Megillah Samanim Biyadai. He had a Megillah of how to make the Ketairis. Amali Rebbe, the Sha'avar Chayuba Beis Abba Tznoyim. In the past, my house, they would name Monim. The Hamasur Mes Megillah Hazais Elul. There was a Messiah given over. The Aksha She'ena Beis Abba Nemonim. Now these people are not Nemonim anymore. Helich at Es Megillah, you take the Megillah. The Hizibah, and you be careful. Ukshabasi it says here Dvarim from Rabbi Akiva. When I saw Rabbi Akiva, Zolgu Ein of the Mois, his eyes teared over. We don't base Avtinas, we don't have to mention Liganai, because you see, Taka, they really meant what they want, they really meant L'Shem Shemayim, that they shouldn't go to the avoid the Zar. It's not that they're doing it for their own covet. The biggest raya is that now that they weren't trustworthy, he gave it over to Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri. Elaz al Proiches, Elaz was trusted Proiches, Shahi Mamuna al Arge Proiches, he was Mamuna on the people who would go ahead and weave the Proiches. Pinchas Hamalbish, Shahi Malbish, Bigde Kahuna Gedoyla, Maisim Kainecha, Shehilbis La'astritos Echad, that he went ahead and he was the Malbish, some officer. He gave him 8 sahubim of gold, a tremendous amount of money. This the army Trey Asa Yavle. He gave him what? 12. Okay. Next. Ein Poichasin Mishiva Amkulin. You don't go ahead and appoint less than 7 Amkulin. These are the supervisors in the Beis Hamikdash. And look at the word Amkulin. It stands for Amar al Kula. It's in the trikin of Amar al Kula. Amar, he said al Kula on everything. Whatever he said went. So that's why that's a very funny lashon, but that's what it means. Less than these Amkulin are the next people. Ashleisha Gizbarim, 3 Gizbarim. And Gizbar we're familiar with. We have it throughout Shas. You don't give a person a position of authority less than 2. Except Ben Achia, who was in charge of the Shal Chalmeayin, the Los Shal Proicha, Shoisen Kibul Roivet Sibra Leim. These people are Roivet Sibra Makabal, and therefore you didn't need 2. Okay, the Gemara now is going to describe these people and their names. It says, Ein Poichas Misholish Gizbarim Umon Shiva Amkulin Tony Mishnei Tony Mishnei Kutalikin. These are even more than the Amkulim. Hadu said, passing the Yamim. Vichiel for Uziyahu, for Nachas Gizbarim. That's 3. For Asoil, for Verimois, for Yizavod, for Eliel. I'm saying share. V'yimo, v'yazav, v'eliyah, v'yismechayu. Guys, you can see me? Did I lose you? Okay. I don't know. The phone is attached to the computer. I don't know how to get it off. Sorry. Anyway, now, Asoyel, v'rimois, v'yazvad, v'eliel, v'yismechayu, u'machas, u'benayahu, Amkulin. That's 7. These are the Amkulin. Bekidim miyad, they were appointed the name Kanan Yahu, V'Shimi Achiv, Katolikin. Those are the 2 Katolikin. Those are the people. The Mafkid Yechizkiyahu, Hamelech, Ba'azayahu, Nagid Beis Elakim, and that's the Kohen Gadol. Hamelech v'Kohen Gadol Kshu Chaysim, when they would go ahead and close the doors of this chamber that had all the money in it. So here's what happened. Kshu Chaysim Agiz b'Chaysim v'Nasnu la'Amrachel, Amrachel Chaysim Nasnu Katolikin, Katolik Chaysim Nasnu Kohen Gadol Chaysim Nasnu Melech, Ukshu Mata Hamelech, Mata Hamelech, Roya Chaysim Mayu Mater, Kohen Gadol. And this is when they would close it up. Now, And when they want to take it off, when they would take it off, he would see his and take off his seal. And he would take off his seal. I guess they're the only ones who could take it off. It must be like some type of lock. Less than 2. Rav Nachman b'shem Rav Manas al shem veheim yichus azavas at chelis vesagaman. Veheim is lashon rabim 2. Amar Rav Chama bei Rabbi Chanina mipsoilish shaluchos se'esha Moshe, from the psoilis of the luchos Moshe got wealthy. Hadu dechsiv psalacha shnei luchos abonim psalacha shetei psoilish shalchad. Psoilish should be yours. Amar Rav Chanan mechatzav shel avonim, from a quarry of stones, toivas of precious stones, umagilios and pearls. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu created in Moshe's tent. We meno Hashem Moshe. Moshe got wealthy from that, not from the luchos. Ksiv ebitu achei Moshe. They looked after Moshe at Bo Ha'ela. When they looked at Moshe, people looked in positive, people looked negative. Chadam l'ganai v'chadam l'shvach. Mandam l'ganai. Chomen shakin. Look how thick his thighs are. He's chomen karayin. Look at his feet. Chomen kupid. Look how fat he is. Achel min Yehudoi. Shasim min the Yehudoi. He eats from your food, drinks from your food. Kol medilei min the Yehudoi. All these things are from the Jews. All the assets. I don't know. I can't believe the lowlifes would say this about Moshe. Uman yama l'shvach. Mechamit Kaya, look at this tzaddik. Umaske tuva the schus lemechabei. Remember the schus to look at this tzaddik. Okay, how was that? It's Hashem's gift to us.
Good, thank you.